This is the Mac Observer Show. I'm your host, Ken Ray, here today with I don't know, what did we meet, like 15 years ago, I think, 14 maybe? John Rokos is here with us. He is the founder and CEO and product architect at Enemy Tree. He's an entrepreneur. He's got this product that I personally love, and we are not here to sell this product. We'll probably give you the website, but this is not a sponsorship. This is not an ad. What this is a guy that I met over a decade ago, who's just done a thing that I think is really neat. I would call OpenCase an overnight success, 4 years in the making, because that's how overnights work. First of all, thanks a lot for being with us today, John.
Yeah, man. Anytime I get a chance to hang out with you, I'm in. So thanks for having me.
I appreciate it. All right. So here's the thing. I brought you here today because as I have said, I think twice now since we started 45 seconds ago, I find your story kind of inspirational and encouraging. And I'm hoping it can also be instructive for people who are watching or listening today. But let's be clear, not everything goes as planned. I want to start, I was telling my special lady friend about this. She's like, "Oh, you're going to do the hero's journey." Let's start with something that didn't work, because not everything does.
Yeah, that's right. So I left Tesla, 10 years ago now. And when I left there, I wanted to do my own thing. And the first thing that I jumped into was actually an RSS app. And the idea was it was called Mosaiscope. The idea was, I still am in love with RSS and RSS readers. I think ActivityPub and some of those other they're like two-way versions of RSS are going to be really interesting in the future. But anyway, so I started that. The idea was to try and do some interesting things with it. And in particular, I'll just say one of the things was a technology called pinpoint bookmarking, where you could bookmark the word, the image, whatever you want, where you left off on your article, so that you could pick it up and read later. It did okay as kind of a pivot. Something that people were asking was, hey, I'd love to read articles, but not be stuck of it only being like something that's like in my RSS feed. So we made kind of a read later app that pulled that accessory, that feature into it. And it was called pinpoint bookmarking. It actually still is up and live, but I don't think I've touched it in 3 years, Ken. But it's there. The other one I did remove. That had server costs and all kinds of stuff. The read later one did not. It never took off. I know partly because trying to start an RSS reader, probably not the most popular idea. But like I said, I was in love with it and I wanted to give it a try.
Yeah, it was a difficult time because I want to say that Net Newsreader was probably still out there. But I mean, probably the thing that killed a whole bunch of stuff like that is Twitter, honestly, because that is where we all started, Facebook, whether... Yeah, right or wrong, that's where a lot of us started turning for our news, unless we were going to, totally. Well, like I already had an RSS reader that I was using, and then, of course, we all had sites that we went to, although that's kind of coming back to bite us, which we might actually do a whole show about that some other time. But let's spin this around, because I don't want this to all be about a negative thing.
Thank gosh.
Yeah, well, that'd be great, wouldn't it? So like your mom and dad or, Ben Franklin or somebody said, though, you fall off the horse, you get back on. I want to start, first of all, by you telling people what OpenCase is, and then we're going to go from idea to production to selling, all of it. But first, let's just tell people what OpenCase is.
Yeah, so OpenCase is a patent-pending phone case that significantly increases the usability and reliability of MagSafe accessories. I say the three main things are it makes them thinner, lighter, and more secure. That's kind of like my go-to terminology for those. And the way I think about it is that it feels a little bit like the missing piece of MagSafe. Like MagSafe is awesome. I fell in love with it the second it came out. I literally, this is awesome during the iPhone 12 presentation. But I also automatically saw, like literally, the idea for this product happened while I was watching the section of them introducing MagSafe. I was like, I've played with magnets my whole life. Like the easiest way to pull them apart is not to pull them straight apart, but to slide them apart. So I'm at that point in time, a case guy with the wallet built in. That was my go-to. I just like having my stuff right there, easily accessible. So I was like, I'm going to get the case. I'm going to get the MagSafe wallet. I can see that it would slide off. You put it in your pocket or somebody throws it in their purse. It's just very easy to knock around. So I decided to basically cut this hole in it myself and so that it would keep everything from sliding around. And from what I've seen with Apple, it's just MagSafe's awesome, but it's a little bit more on the convenience side than the secure side. And it's very convenient, right? You can put it on, you can take it off really easily, move a wallet or a pop socket or whatever out of the way to put it on a charger, which is one of the main reasons they did it. But it's almost too easy. And it needed that one extra thing to hold your accessory in place so that if you wanted to remove it, it needed to be more intentional and not accidental. And anybody who's used one of these, whether you've got the case on or not, and you've got like the wallet, how many times you'll reach in your pocket and the wallet is sideways on it and you're like pull it out and maybe it catches and falls in your pocket. Like it just needed that one last little piece to really just lock it in place, but still keep the usability, easy to put it on, easy to take it off. And I hope that's what I've created here with OpenCase.
Well, it's kind of crazy because, like, forgive me, and it sounds like I brought you on here to make fun, and I really didn't. But, like, you come 10 years ago and say, I'm going to do an RSS reader, and it's like, oh, it's an interesting choice. Then you come and say, I'm going to do an iPhone case, and it feels like there are like a million iPhone cases. And yet, I will say, you were kind enough to send me one of these a long time ago. You said it's the kind of thing you're going to switch out. Maybe you'll use it sometimes, maybe you won't. It's my only iPhone case now. And the thing is, well, that's not true because I started running again and I don't feel comfortable running with it. But otherwise, I mean, So what's amazing to me is years after what we used to at Macworld called Tiny Town, of like tabletops with like 50 cases on each one, you've come with an idea that's like a new one. So for me, if I had been the guy to come up with this idea, one of two things would happen. Either I would make one for me and it would be a neat thing that I have for me, or I would sell it to somebody. How did you decide, you know what? I'm gonna start a business.
Yeah. I think there's two pieces of this. I'll start with one related to the failure that we talked about at the top of the show. And in that pinpoint bookmarking technology I told you about, I actually patented that. And so I hit a certain point where Mosaiscope and the pinpoint bookmarking app, they weren't doing great. So I was like, oh, it still feels like there's something here. So maybe let me try and turn over a few rocks, talk to a few friends. I was lucky enough to be in the Bay Area and had people go from Tesla to Apple or Google or Facebook, all these different companies. And I was like, well, maybe this technology would be useful. You talk to them. And it fell on deaf ears. And after talking to a few other people, it became clear to me that nobody really cares about your idea unless you give them something to care about. So that's one piece of it. The other piece was, like I said, I came up with the idea during the iPhone 12 reveal when they came out with MagSafe. So after having the idea bounce around in my head for a while, I was like, this can't be patented, can it? And I called up my patent attorney who helped me with the first one. And he was like, have you done any research? Does this exist? And I was like, no. I went as deep as I can on Amazon, Alibaba, the web in general, everywhere. I can't find anything. At this point, it's probably a month after MagSafe is introduced. And he's like, I'm asking the wolf if I should let him in the hen house, jokingly anyway. But I'm asking a patent attorney, should I get a patent? And he's like, of course you should, But using my own reason and logic, I'm like, yeah, I think I'm gonna try this, do it just in case there's something here. And pretty soon after that, I had the new phone in the case. I made it for myself, and it just worked awesome. So I asked a few other friends, can I make you a prototype? I'll buy cheap cases off of eBay. I'll get out the jigsaw like I did for mine, and crudely cut these holes in the cases. Just this little starter hole with the drill. I mean, it wasn't anything fancy, and sent them to a handful of friends, and they were all like, "This works really well." Like the one that I really think of as the example of this was my one buddy who actually works at Apple, and he's like, dude, he's like, I can't use the MagSafe wallet. I'm just too scared of losing my wallet. And I'm like, I get it. Just, throw some, I don't know, some like business cards if you got from somebody that you don't care about it, just something, and just use it. I talked to him 3 weeks later, and he's like, I was like, so how's it going? He said, dude, this is my wallet now. Like, I was like, oh, what do you mean? He's like, I got rid of my wallet. He's like, I pared it down to this is it. He's like, it's so secure. He's like, he's like, it's crazy. He's like, I used it for like a couple of days without. He's like, yeah, it moves around, it falls off. He's like, it hasn't moved an inch. I'm like, okay. I actually had another friend who was one of those test guys who around the same time I was doing check-ins with people, and he's like stressing. He's like, man, I can't give up my wallet, man. And I was like, it was so funny to see these different sides. And I was like, oh, buddy, no. Like, I was like, I still carry my regular wallet too. Like, I want cash and, some like backup items, but I like 99% of my life, like that's here.
Yeah.
So pull it out and it takes care of everything. And he's like, oh, I thought I had to get rid of my wallet. And I'm like, no, dude, you're cool. Like but it's helped slim it down. He's like, okay. And that helped him. But yeah,
I got to say,
good.
One of my favorite parts of it is the fact that, it keeps me from just shoving receipts in my wallet. I mean, that's pretty much it. Yeah. I mean, because how it went was I would take every receipt I got, I would put it in my wallet 6 months later. Of course, this is pre-pandemic, but 6 months later, I can't sit down comfortably because my wallet is in my back pocket and it's all, full of crap. What's really interesting to me,
George Costanza wallet. I understand.
Yeah, exactly. What's interesting to me is you mentioned, of course, you knew a patent guy, and I assume there would be a warning like those people on TV who say, "Do you have an idea? Write to us." Don't do that, because that's a way to kind of steal your ideas and stuff. At the same time, don't just assume your idea, has no merit like that, because I told one of the kids in the house about this. I was like, yeah, my friend's done this thing. They were like, oh, cool, let me see it. I was like, yeah, and it's patented, or he's applying for a patent. He's like, you can get a patent for cutting a hole in the back of an iPhone case. Yes, your idea. Yeah. And I'm kind of going step by step on all this, because not everybody who's watching this is going to be thinking, oh, I have an idea for an iPhone case, or, oh, I have an idea for an RSS reader. But I want to talk about the steps you're doing, because I'm seriously, when somebody makes something and then makes something of that thing, I'm excited for them, and I want to find out how they did it, and I want to share with other people how they did as well. So if we can, let's move on to the manufacturing side or the production side. There was a woman I met.
Well, real quickly, do you want to? Oh, I was just going to say real quickly, if you want to touch on the patent piece of it.
Oh,
just
sure.
Real quickly. Yeah. There are three things, and I wrote them down because I wanted to hit the three parts of it, because you're talking about the kids in the house making this point. There are three pieces of a patent. It has to be novel. To get a patent, it has to be novel, useful, and non-obvious. And, I was doing this right around the launch of, a MagSafe. So I was kind of rolling the dice on some of these, right? It's easy. But the novel is going to be novel enough, and the non-obvious piece, are other people just going to be popping? And it's 2.5 years, and nothing has popped up where anybody was like, oh, whole, like whatever. Like, so it takes a while to get to that point, and it also takes a while for the patent office to get there as well. But some of these things do take a little bit of time before they can prove out so you can really say, like, it is not, like, look around how many people are even just, throwing this out there.
See, what's crazy.
It's crazy.
It's like so many good ideas, though, because once you see it, you're like, oh, I mean, it is obvious. It's not obvious because everybody didn't do it, but you see it. And it's like, obvious may be the wrong word. Simple may be a better word. And yet very much a differentiator, I think. All right, now let's go to production, because this is the part that I'm kind of curious about right now. So much has changed in the way we do things. We're going to talk about funding in a minute. We're going to talk about production, but it was probably about 20 years ago now. I met a woman in the Bay Area who made designer diaper bags. And the reason she made designer diaper bags was because a friend of hers got pregnant and she wanted to get her a diaper bag. And her friend was, living in the Bay Area, had a decent job, was a fashionable person. And all the diaper bags she could find were not fashionable. She was being graduated from, you're a person who thinks about what they look like and what they do, to mom. And you get like 5 choices and that's it. And so she decided she was going to make designer bags, and she, came up with whatever design she did. And then she went to China to meet with fabric companies, people who actually manufactured the fabric. Had another friend, I can't remember what his project was, but I want to say about 10 years ago, had an idea for a thing that was going to be made, came up with the idea, did the design work. He went to China. You didn't have to go to China, did you?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Things have changed quite a bit, I assume, in manufacturing and how we get those things done. Obviously, I'm not looking for phone numbers or addresses because, again, we're not necessarily talking about, people manufacturing our product. But talk to me about that side of it, because that is a huge change just in the past decade to 2 decades.
Yeah. And I think in general, this is really interesting to have this conversation with you because, from listening to your show and a lot of other different around the Apple and Mac world, you don't usually hear a lot of people talking about creating hardware. You hear a lot about software. But other than Apple, a lot of times I think it's pretty rare to have a conversation about hardware and how hard it is. I think I said it when we started off with my the failures at the top. The idea for me was I actually wanted to start off with software and hopefully have some successes there to then roll the money and hopefully into hard things that I knew were going to be harder, like hardware. Unfortunately, they didn't work out. I ended up at this point in time where I had this idea. I was like, hardware, it's going to be hard, but I still really wanted to do it. In terms of your friends going to China and me not. Well, I think one of the issues that came up that maybe changed some things with manufacturing and made it a little bit easier, maybe a lot of bit easier, was that when COVID came in, you couldn't go and you couldn't do a lot of stuff. So just like, Zoom meetings and even the late night TV shows, people were doing it from their bedroom closets and stuff. Things went massively online and you just kind of had to adjust. So I think that adjustment, a lot of people are used to like, hey, I'm going to send you, I'm not coming over on the plane with the plans to hand them to you and to like look over your shoulder. I'm going to just send you the plans and then we'll use one of these live features and go back and forth and that type of stuff. So I think that all the technologies with, what we're on Ecamm and any of these other ones, Zoom and all this stuff, have made that a little bit easier. The other piece that I think was an advantage for me in this situation was that it's the level of complexity. If you've got an iPhone, you better have an entire team of people leaving on a plane every single day, going over there, checking on things, double checking, triple checking, whatever. I could luckily ride on the coattails of a manufacturer who makes phone cases. And I'm doing an adjustment to the phone case. Now, the opening, the size of the opening, where it's placed has to be pretty precise because of the magnets are very, they're in a specific spot in the back of your phone. The shorter the phone is, the more critical that gets because now you start the top of your accessory, like the wallet. Now it starts moving up closer and closer to the camera. And so I got to make sure that the clearances are good there. So the circle of magnets, the one isn't pushing the other one down and suddenly it's not staying on there correctly. So there are details that I need to get into. But again, luckily, they're going to have the mold to make the case. They're used to, wrapping things in we use the synthetic leathers and stuff like that. We kind of took a cue from Apple and said that's the direction that we also want to go in for a lot of those same reasons that they did. So, yeah. So in my case, I think the complexity might be a little, but also the technology to communicate is quite a bit higher than say even 4 years ago because we were all forced to. So I think those two elements coming together made it easier for me. I'll say that I've been pretty lucky to after a lot of searching, find a really good partner, people who are just willing to try something. Because I ran into some people who they weren't interested in doing anything other than, oh, you want to swap out a color.
Mm-hmm.
So it was important to find some people who would be okay with trying some stuff. And so far, it's been going really well. It still takes a lot of work, a lot of communication, but it's going well.
Now we're going to get to funding in a moment, but you actually, and it's not like a big reveal or anything. I mean, you went with Kickstarter for your funding, or a large part of it anyway, and yet you had prototypes before you started Kickstarter, because I think you sent me the one you sent me about a week or two before the Kickstarter actually kicked off. What's that jump there? Because those can't have been free. I mean, was there? Did you have startup money before you had startup money? I mean, how did you do that bit? If you don't mind sharing.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's all bootstrapped. It's all self-funding. Being as scrappy as possible, using as little money as possible. The Kickstarter takes care of the next piece of that. But yeah, leading up to that, I mean, the ones that went out to the initial handful of friends was me spending probably $100 total in my time to buy them on eBay, cut the holes out, and then put them in the mail and send them to friends and family. The next set, getting those prototypes. Okay. I'd say it's like, I want to say one of the hardest parts of manufacturing, and then you think about the next one and the next hardest part and the next hardest. So it's like you just trip over yourself thinking about this. But one of the really hard parts about manufacturing is minimum order quantities, MOQ. And so luckily with samples, you can get onesie twosies here. So I probably got, I think 20 or 30 cases. And yeah, that cost me, I don't know, a couple $100 to get. And that was multiple, of iPhone 14s and 15. Actually, no, at that point it was only 15. So we got a handful of, and it was just 15 Pros and 15 Pro Maxes. So I had, probably people in the media like yourself, they're going to probably have the newest phone. They're probably going to have one of the Pro models. So, I took a little bit of chance there and said, I'll just get these two to keep that investment as low as possible. And finish they just sent me raw cases. I finished, the holes myself and sent them to you and a handful of others. So again, keeping the costs low. You want me to go into the funding side with Kickstarter next, or where do you want me to go from here? What do you think?
Well, actually just doing, just continuing along the process, just like I said earlier, how manufacturing has to have changed so much. And that inflection point of 2020, you're absolutely right. That didn't even occur to me what a huge thing that would be. It's the same kind of thing where a lot of people are now working from home where they wouldn't have before. And there's some more schooling that's happening from home than there was before. That was a change born of necessity, but now you got the infrastructure, why wouldn't you keep it? But yeah, Kickstarter is a different thing because that is not born of COVID, obviously, but that has helped revolutionize a bunch of startup costs for people. It's kind of weird to me when you see, like, I am an established game company that is now trying to kickstart, something that when they've got money, and yet they're going for more money so they can do a thing, but it seems to work for all levels. That's from whatever that game developer is that's making the Planet of the Apes role-playing game. Is that who they are? I don't remember, but I'm so tempted. No, it's a Planet of the Apes tabletop RPG that I'm like, why am I going to pay you that money? Cool. But yeah, I'm still thinking about it. But either way, that's everything from a publishing company that's already got printers and relationships and, an established track record to you. Kickstarter has to have changed the funding possibilities immensely.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. I think Kickstarter, and when I say them, I'm kind of generally talking about this genre of like them, Indiegogo, like a bunch of different funding platforms, but definitely the biggest by far that everybody knows. You even call it a Kickstarter. You don't really call it an Indiegogo. It's like the Xerox, right?
Right.
And so this is when I was kind of thinking about the manufacturing and the next hardest. So one of the hard pieces of this is, in the past, as you're kind of alluding to here, you had to take, I mean, the risks were outrageous. If I wanted to do what I did with this pre Kickstarter type of crowdfunding stuff, the risks are off the chart. I would have had to spend tens of thousands of dollars to get product, to get it, to have it ready, and then hopefully sell something. And the real revolution of Kickstarter, which is like 15 years old now, right, is to get the money first. So, I mean, it really has been a revolution. And there's probably still no better way to do it than one of these crowdfunding like Kickstarter campaigns where you say, here's the idea. So then you hit a point where you're like, I hope I can sell this thing. So Kickstarter really helps with that and those crowdfunding platforms, because you can put an idea out there and part of the process is the campaign itself. But if you want to get things manufactured, again, those MOQs, those minimum order quantities, you have to be ready to sell it to more people. So the Kickstarter helps you put it out there. You still do have to do a lot of groundwork, because just putting it on Kickstarter, nobody cares. Nobody will ever find it. You have to reach out. Like I reached out to you and said, hey, Ken, like, can I send you this? And, you know, luckily you liked it and you wanted to tell people like, hey, my buddy John's doing this. I also had to reach out to just tons of other people to try and get any coverage I could to drive people, just like you have a business, to drive people to my Kickstarter campaign. And if people ended up there and said, I'm not interested in this, maybe it wouldn't have hit its minimum goal. You have to set a minimum goal. But hopefully it catches even just a little bit. And so we were lucky enough, we did double our goal, or just a little bit under double our goal. So that was really awesome. But there was a ton of work behind that. And the one piece that I'll say that was a surprise to me about the Kickstarter piece was that Kickstarter is 15 years old, and they've got 15 years of good things happening and not so good things happening. And what I specifically mean is, I'll tell the story. So friends, and I'm trying to figure out how to, get this out to anywhere, any media, anything. So people, and my one buddy's like, you know what? Kind of like your friend. He's like, 10 years ago, I had this buddy of mine. He actually did a phone case, and he did it on Kickstarter. And he's like, I think he did really well. Let me connect you to him. So I looked up his Kickstarter. Yeah, did really well, whatever. And I saw one of the main thing that really lit me up was that I saw on his Kickstarter page, it was him on local news. And I was like, oh, what a great, like, local news is always looking for local people doing interesting things. Let me reach out, to the same TV station. The same person who interviewed them is still at the TV station doing like the morning show or something like that. So I reached out to them and actually ended up to like 5 or 10 different people on the show. And only one person wrote me back, and they said straight up, we no longer cover Kickstarters. So this is the bad side of it, because after 15 years, some of these Kickstarter projects haven't worked out, and people haven't gotten their money back. And that has burned some media outlets, because in the early days, Kickstarter was so exciting. So anytime somebody had a Kickstarter project, local news, national news, like newspapers, like, oh, this new neat thing, a local person's doing Kickstarter. And now, no major outlet would give me the time of day. And it took a while before I understood that they had, and hearing from a couple people share their details that they had been burned, that they thought something was cool, local artist or somebody was doing this thing. It didn't work out. Nobody's money got returned. And the station, their viewers blamed them for saying that you almost endorsed it. So luckily, in particular, I'll say, I consider you major, Ken. So you're the only major outlet that carried my thing. So I'm going to throw that out there. But other than you, I had to go to a lot of the smaller tech people on like YouTube who were willing to be like, yo, this is neat. Yeah, like I want to share this. No problem. Marquez, I probably never would have heard, him or anybody in that realm. But the smaller folks were willing to take a risk on me because they were like, yeah, I see the value. Like this is a very clever idea. Let me share your idea. So I wasn't able to get to any of those bigger news outlets, but the smaller ones, this democratization of content, if you will, and smaller people on, in particular, and some smaller blogs, they did take the risk because they saw the value in the idea. But that was the one thing that was surprising to me about the Kickstarter piece, where in that aspect, trying to get any bigger news coverage, there is basically a blanket policy that most of the major outlets won't do it anymore. So that was something I had to fight against. I know I was going to have to.
Well, there is something neat about, I think, going to the smaller outlets as well, though, because the smaller outlets, if they're still around, have been able to forge a relationship with their viewers, listeners, readers, what have you. So, I mean, on the one hand, yeah, you're right. Being on, Good Morning Dayton, I don't know where you live, man, but being on
Good
Sacramento,
Morning Dayton, Sacramento.
Okay, being on Good Morning Sacramento, Wake Up Sacramento is probably their show.
Yes.
I don't know. Being on that is, on the one hand, you're reaching more people, but you're reaching more people while they're, making breakfast for the kids, or while they're getting ready to go to work, while they're doing any number of other things. Whereas reaching out to the smaller groups, I think they've got I would imagine I have a more intimate connection with the people that who have been listening to me for, nearly 20 years than the person who just started on the, the television show 5 minutes ago. So, okay, let's move on. You're out of Kickstarter now. You are actually selling at this point, correct?
Mm-hmm. That's correct. Yes. Yeah. Where you got, go ahead.
Well, no, I just want to say, I mean, as I have said before, and I'll probably say it again before we leave, we're not here to sell this product, but the website is theopencase.com, because we've talked about it a lot. And if people want to find out just what we're talking about, because I think we described it as an iPhone case that somebody cut a hole in, it is more than that. So theopencase.com is the website. Yeah. So you guys are actually now to a point where you're selling. It's no longer a Kickstarter thing. It is if you want it, here it is, come and get it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. So after the Kickstarter was over, we had basically this kind of a landing page, and we still had that, but we changed the link from pointing to the Kickstarter to pointing to, we used a third-party service called BackerKit, which a lot of people use. It gives you a lot more features and functionality for fulfilling your Kickstarter project. I will say Kickstarter's jumping into super high gear, adding a lot of these functions, because they kind of chilled for the last couple of years. So now they're like, oh, we want to like really be on it. So it's really interesting to see some of the things that they're adding. After my Kickstarter was over, but that's fine. But anyway, one of the features of the Backer Kit was being able to immediately, when your Kickstarter is over, to turn on a landing page that is a pre-order page. So while we were working with our manufacturer to actually, now we've got the money to then place the order for all of our product. And while we were waiting for it to show up, to still have the ability to sell it to people or let people pre-order before, we had it in-house to be able to ship out. So we collected a whole bunch of orders during that period of time, which is still really neat. It's kind of interesting to turn off any effort. And honestly, it's been months since we've put any effort into telling people about stuff. And we're still almost daily still getting stuff. So I'm hoping that is a good sign that there may be an actual business here. So we went from that pre-order page to the product came in and we could actually deliver it to people. So we turned off the pre-order page and we updated the website from that landing page to an actual website, like a full-on, like a Shopify website. And it's still pretty basic. We are putting a ton of effort right now in the background to get it ready, because I think the real big shift for us is going to be the cases for the iPhone 16. That's because as you can imagine, people get their new phones, and that's when 90% of phone cases are 80 to 90% of phone cases are sold around that time. So we know it theoretically is going to be a big time. So we're kind of working on that. So our website is up. We are like, people's orders come in within a couple of days. We ship them out. I mean, it's like full on. It's just, we've got a long way to go before the end of the year, when hopefully it tells more of our story. Because right now it's just like, here are our products, please buy them. I hope you understand what they are. And later in the year, more of like, here's what it is. Here, improve things. Like, here's who I am. Here's my story. So it's more engaging, and people kind of get more of a sense of where it came from and what it's about. But right now it's still pretty basic, but you want to buy it, it's there. And yeah, it's a lot of work.
Let's go through, because we've caught up to the present. So let's go through a couple of things that you talked about really quickly. If you think you have if you have an idea that you think can be patented, don't call one of the 800 numbers on TV, because that's not the way to go. If you're worried about manufacturing, there are ways to do that without you actually having to go to China to do that. You're a fan of crowdfunding. Yep. You're not necessarily saying Kickstarter is the only way, although Kickstarter you've said is the biggest. You've now said that you've got a Shopify site, although I don't know that you're endorsing Shopify as much as you're saying there are tools out there. I mean, I guess that's the one thing that people should know, depending on what your idea is. And again, we're talking about a physical thing, but depending on what your idea is, on the one hand, the market is more crowded for a lot of the kinds of products that people are interested in. On the other hand, there seem to be more tools on the table at this point.
Yep.
I'm curious, and you just said it's a business, so I think I know the answer now. Is this a thing now that you're like, and now this is what I do? Or is this a thing that you're like, so come on, spec, I'm ready? I mean, are you looking to run this? Are you looking to sell this? What are you thinking? What are you thinking for yourself going forward?
I mean, I'm open to if anybody was interested, but I haven't really given that any thought, because kind of like I said earlier, nobody cares unless you give them something to care about. So until I'm out there in the market and people really are choosing us over other cases, I don't think anybody's going to care. So from here on out, I'm just focused on growing the business, doing a really good job for the customers. And if something happens down the line where it could really get the idea out there in a bigger way, and there's something that can happen with that, like, that's a neat conversation. But I think we've got a lot of work ahead of us before anybody would ever care. And that's fine. Like, I'm ready for it. And that's what I signed up for. And as hard as it can be, and it is hard, it's still pretty fun, because it's like your thing and it really exists and people are using it. Like, people write to us and they're like, this is so awesome. I'm like, it's just neat. You know, I've tried that, like I said, at the top of the show with some of these other products. Never really got that feedback, Ken.
Yeah.
You know, and that's fine. Like, maybe it wasn't the product that clicked with people. And so far this one it's been really cool. Yeah.
I mean, as I've said a million times, and I'll probably only say it one more time after this, we're not here to sell it, but I figured I would use it for a couple of days and let you know what I thought. And like I said, until I started running again, it didn't come off my phone. All right, so let's wrap this whole thing up, not with a step-by-step, because I think we've done that a time or two.
Yeah.
Don't want to make this like a Toastmasters thing. Don't want to make this like a meeting of the local Rotary Club. But if you did have something to say, I don't even want to go necessarily so far as advice or inspiration, but somebody listening, they have an idea. They have a thing that they want to pursue. Maybe it's physical. Maybe it's digital. Maybe it's print. They have an idea. Do you have general advice for anybody in kind of that situation? I mean, what would you say to encourage, or what should people look out for? I mean, inspire.
Yeah, I definitely try not to give advice too much, but what I do try and do is share my experience, because there's so many nuances that, you know, it's giving advice is almost like trying to tell somebody like how to do something. And I think if I can just kind of share pieces of my experience, people can glean from that, hopefully something that will be relevant to their situation. And so given that, I'd say there are two things that come to mind. One is, and it's pretty simple, right? I've probably even said this already a couple times here, is that it's harder than you think it's going to be. And I think, you know, I've listened to, you don't even know, podcasts and documentaries and everything, and everybody's like, man, it was so much harder than we thought it was going to be. So I came into this with that mindset. I was like, I know this is going to be hard, especially because I know it's a physical product. So, you know, the classic saying, hardware is hard. So I knew it was going to be hard. And until it's you don't really realize how hard it's going to be. but hopefully it's something you're really into, so you can enjoy the journey, and that hard, making it through the hard makes it feel rewarding. And so far that has been the way it's been going. The second one is to, from me going through this journey, something that has been extremely helpful is, I'll just say mentorship and help. I want to give a big shout out to Tom Gerhardt. You may recognize his name from Studio Neat. They were kind of very involved in the Apple Mac world early on, and now they're doing all kinds of stuff in the stationery space, making like really cool pens and this type of stuff. I know you're a pen guy, Ken, so I know that's probably interesting to you. But about a year ago, I was listening to their podcast, and so Tom and his partner, they have this podcast, and Tom had kind of announced that he was going to do some mentorship's not the right word here because it's paid, but just helping people, because they're like one of the early students, one of the real early darlings of Kickstarter. They just broke out, exploded, did amazing. They had like the cosmonaut for like writing on your iPad, and the thing that like holds your iPhone so you can use it as a camera. A whole bunch of really cool stuff. So Tom said he was going to start doing consulting. And I was like, if I go through with this project, I've been following this guy for almost 15 years. And he's an expert. And this is the hard part. You talked about like, don't go to those 800 numbers on TV. That's like, call, we'll help you get your design. Like what ends up happening in that case is they own your design. Mm-hmm. And they pay a couple $100 and that's it. You're kind of screwed. So don't call the 800 numbers. Like they end up owning your idea. They give you $20 and then they make all the money because they own the patent, that type of stuff. So finding somebody who is a trustworthy source, again, that may be the hard part in this, but somebody who's really been through the journey before to give you any type of feedback on what you're doing, to help just give you some guidance. It's been huge. And the other one is if you can get some help, even if it's just, little pieces here and there from friends and family on little stuff. So for example, my wife has come on full time and she's doing this with me. This is what we do. We are building the business together. That is, I can't, so the website and all that stuff, that's all her. I didn't touch it. She actually, a bunch of years ago, so she has her own website. It has it's a vegan recipe blog, vegan recipe blog. And she was like 3 or 4 years into it and just wanted to share her ideas, but hit a certain point where she was like, I don't know. She was like, I want to like see if there's something here. Like I want more people to find it. So she went and enrolled in a like 9-month long UC Davis digital marketing course. And she's not a tech person. And she just went for it, man. And she's now had her website for 7 years and it's just going, because she learned all the little tips and tricks and all the things you need to do and the SEO and the this, that, and the other, on top of the fact that she's constantly doing the recipes and adding them to her blog to kind of expand and contribute to, vegan recipes and vegan lifestyle and that type of stuff. Mm-hmm. So now here we are trying to, and she doesn't care about making any money from that. She just wanted to share it and do it in a better way. Well, now, wouldn't you know, like 3 or 4 years later, we're in this together and it's like, man, I wish I had an expert to help me with SEO and doing the website. Oh, honey,
right.
Are you busy? And, and she digs the idea too. She is an Android person. All good. But the interesting thing there is the beginning of last year, Apple gave all of their MagSafe patents to the Qi Charging Consortium. The Qi Charging Consortium combined those into making the new Qi standard called Qi 2. So I would guess by the end of this year, if not early next year, you will start seeing MagSafe, which will be called Qi 2, built into Android phones as well. So that's really interesting. But to finish my point from before, the mentorship and the help, because this stuff is really hard. And if you're brave enough, I don't know if I can say that, but brave enough to dive into a physical product, which is even harder because you can't just send an update and fix everything. And in some cases, I'll be honest with software, sometimes things get screwed up enough that you can't do that. So it gets hairy, but hardware is hard. Hardware is hard. So having the extra help is huge.
You may feel weird calling yourself brave, but I will bring up the quote, fortune favors the bold. So there, you don't have to say it about yourself. I'll go ahead and say it for you. I want to remind people what the website is again. And last time I say it, unless I say it again in a minute, not selling it, but we want you to see the end result of what we've been talking about. So theopencase.com is the website, theopencase.com. And John Rokos is the guy behind it. I've heard this story directly from you once before, although we talked at the beginning of it, and now we're doing it at the end. And I was inspired the first time I heard it, and hearing it again, I'm just, inspired again. And I'm really glad that you came on, that you were willing to share this story with all of us. John, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, love being here. Thank you, Ken.